Hey everybody, and I hope you're doing well right now. Well, I thought today would be a good day to open and review some action figures. And you might have seen the thumbnail, or just looking here, I have 3 new Marvel Legends figures that I got at Ollie's, even cheaper than the $9.99 sticker. And I have 2 figures from the Mandalorian that are openers. I brought my coffee in here, and the cup was wet out of the dishwasher and spilled some drops of water on it, but I'm not worried. So I have IG-11 and the Off-World Jawa from Articulation 7. So I'm pretty excited about all of these figures, and I was surprised that Ollie's had such cool Marvel Legends figures, to tell you the truth. They usually just have, figures from movies that didn't do very well, like Captain Marvel or the Eternals or whatever, but so these actually look pretty good, and I'm looking forward to opening them here. So let's start with the Star Wars. So this is IG-11 from the Mandalorian. He is an IG unit, very similar to IG-88. But if you take a close look, you'll see the figures are actually quite different, and this does appear to be a somewhat original mold, if not altogether original. The parts on the IG-88, the feet, these thigh plates and so forth, are much bigger. The head seems to be a different mold. He has a similar model blaster rifle, but it's also different, and he's carrying looks like a DC-14 blaster, which does look very similar to the one that IG-88's carrying. This is this was the vintage collection IG-88, which the biggest complaint I had about it was he has a holster on the back that was totally the wrong type of holster for this DC-42 blaster, I think, or DC-15. It looks like it's for Han Solo's blaster. So, and he has a blade attachment, and I think you can take off, or you were supposed to be able to maybe take off one of his arms to put the blade attachment on. I never really figured out how that worked either. It just kind of, this figure always felt a little half-baked to me. On the bright side, it had great articulation, see, and but look at the hands, for example, much different on IG-11. His bandolier is a cross bandolier with 2 belts instead of 1. So this might be an exciting figure to open up, having seen IG-88 here. So just wanted to acquaint you with the features of this IG-88, the classic original. So let's continue to look at the packaging for IG-11. There's a picture of him from the Mandalorian show when he's on his way to retrieve the child, and he is just a force to be reckoned with against all of the forces against him. And so we finally get to see an IG unit in action outside of the Clone Wars show. In the back, you can see some of the other figures. The Royal Guard is a cool one, but to tell you the truth, this was yet another wave full of repacks that weren't exactly interesting to a lot of people. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and open this one up. Take out the tray. First, I'm gonna take out his blaster rifle, and it's weathered. It's painted with that weathered metal look, which is really cool. And his DC-14, or looks like they just took it off a Clone Wars figure. To me, it does not look much different. Or a Stormtrooper. It looks like your standard blaster here. And the figure itself, he feels very similar to IG-88. Articulation. He has articulated elbows. At least that one is. Trying to crack it here. With a lot of these figures, you want to carefully sort of crack the point of articulation without tearing the plastic, which always makes me a little nervous, because like in the case of this one, I'm a little worried about because it doesn't want to give, and I don't want to break it. Like this one bends pretty easily, and I know this one's supposed to, but what stinks is I'd like to get it in a pose where he could hold his rifle. There we go. You have to, it takes some doing. Okay. So we got some articulation here. His head has the same sort of swiveling as old IG-88. The parts on IG-88 feel much more sturdy, and whereas this one feels like it will break. Okay. He has this type of joint in the leg, where he can flare out or move up. He has articulation in the waist, the knees, and the feet, ankles. It looks great. He's weathered. He looks like an older droid. He does, almost. I think you can get his blaster rifle does fit nicely in his hand, so he can use it. You can point it. You can have him grip it in different ways, and or you can put a blaster rifle in one hand and the pistol in the other, and he holds it okay. He looks great, and he'll pose really good. If you have your Mandalorian action figure, you can display him next to him, and I think it'll look great. You can start to build your Mandalorian collection. So, all things considered, this is a decent figure, a good addition to the Mandalorian collection, and the paint work is good. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with it. Next, this is the Off-World Jawa, and on the back you can see the Ahsoka Tano, an ARC Trooper Echo, a Bespin Escape Leia, a Boba Fett, a Darth Maul, a Baby Yoda, and a Grief Karga in this wave. My card here is really damaged, so I'm not worried about it. It does have a picture of the Jawa from the Mandalorian. So you might notice that his garb is a little grayer and less brown than the other Jawas. I'm going to take his parts out, and let's look at him in comparison with some of the other Jawas that we've gotten from Hasbro. Pretty simple figures. These are some Power of the Force Jawas that I still kind of liked, and I liked that you could shine a light through their head to make their eyes glow, which I thought was a nice touch. They didn't have a lot of articulation. They were equipped with the pistol and the famous Jawa, it almost looks like a blunderbuss, and this is the new sort of equivalent to it that's much more detailed. He has this one too. You can see the old bolt action rifle that Lucasfilm made for the prop here. And of course the Mudhorn egg, which is what the Jawas wanted. I don't think it opens. I think it's a solid piece, but if you recall from the episode, the Jawas got the Mandalorian to go through all kinds of trials and tribulations to get this egg for them, and all they ended up doing was eating it. So the Jawa himself is highly articulated and detailed. He has articulation in the shoulders. I don't feel anything in the elbows, and I'm moving up his sleeves and I don't see the elbows, but he does have articulated wrists. You can open his little cloak and see that he has an articulated waist. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points of articulation with this little Jawa. He's also carrying a small satchel or bag, and interestingly his head and hood are 2 pieces, and I almost feel like you could remove the hood. It almost seems like it comes off, but I don't want to force it, but it does appear to be in 2 pieces, but I do think it is glued at some point. If you look closely, you can see some details in the Jawa's face, just like with the old figures. They allowed a little detail, but they always kept them a mystery. So you can equip your Jawa with these 2 blasters, and he holds them. No, I was gonna say pretty good. There we go. Yeah. So I think it's a good figure, and I think once again this will pose nicely with your Mandalorian figure. Along with IG-11, you'll get a nice Season 1 Mandalorian set going here. I had to get some coffee there. I just got home from work, so I'm pretty tired. So, as you can see, the Hasbro Jawas have come a long way, as most of the action figures have. These were very unposable. You could move their arms, but the original Kenner Jawas were actually much more posable than these guys. And although they're in the same scale, you could display these all together if you wanted to. I don't think that would be too much of a problem. So let's set these over here. And let's look at some of these Marvel figures here. I think I'll start with Black Tom Cassidy. Let's look at the back and read. This is from the Marvel Strong Guy wave. It looks a bit like Thanos. It says Black Tom Cassidy, a nefarious criminal with the power of concussive blasts and plant morphology. Black Tom is a true threat. And he comes in a wave with Deadpool, along with Shikla, Marvel's Maverick, Marvel's Sunspot, Marvel's Warpath, and another Deadpool just like a pirate, which is what I'd love to get. I'm also going to show you in this video Warpath and Maverick. So hang around and we'll look at these three figures. I do have this Deadpool. And see if I have him handy. So this is the Deadpool from this wave, and I actually like this figure a lot. He's not exactly like the Deadpool we know from the movies, except in Deadpool 2 when he puts on the X-Men outfit. And he's got his pistol and some type of machine rifle here, and his two samurai swords. He still is recognizable as Deadpool, though, with his sort of signature mask and his buckle. So, and his expression is kind of funny. So Deadpool's definitely a comic character. He also has that great Spider-Man articulation, which with the chest muscles here, which I really like. So that's the Deadpool. I really do want to get this pirate Deadpool. I've seen him a few times, but it's always kind of expensive, and you know, like I have to think about buying a figure for ages before I decide to make the decision to buy it. Okay. And we got some parts here to make Marvel Strongman. This looks like a very piece of hard plastic that will probably be his back. It's funny, you usually get a little bit more part than this. It's just like half a piece. Black Tom comes with a walking stick that has a skull on top of it. He's very similar to Morbius in terms of the body sculpt. I don't think it's an absolute it's close to being a repaint. They're very similar, as you can see. But this does seem to be slightly different sculpt. The belt is a separate piece. He has sort of a rogue, cavalier looking face. the usual great Marvel Legends articulation with the head. Unlike a lot of other Marvel figures, he doesn't come with extra hands or an extra head. He's just one simple figure with just this walking stick, which I'll put in his hand, which fits great. So the walking stick itself is a very cool little piece itself. It's just very cool. So the articulation is good, tight joints. He's wearing, he's dressed to me like I said, some kind of dashing rogue with these boots and these gauntlets, this popped collar. We turn him around, we see he's quite simple. He has just a black outfit with this belt on. And it keeps making me think of Morbius as far as the overall shape and detailing of the figure. You can see very, very similar figures. Very similar from behind. So it makes me wonder whenever I come across a Marvel Legends figure in Ollie's, I'm asking myself, well, I guess this one didn't sell very well. And you can sort of see why, because although could be a really cool character, you just don't see a real action-packed figure here. Now the next two, not so much. It makes me wonder, because the next two look like to be a lot of fun. It just may be that these X-Force and these characters are just so unknown or so, esoteric or whatever that no one knows who they are and they just weren't interested in buying them. Although I think he's a cool looking figure. It just is a basic action figure. He is very cool looking. You can get him in a lot of poses. You can so not exactly sure why so much of this wave ended up in Ollie's. Like I said, Ollie's is where toys go to die. It's not usually where good toys are at. The next one I want to open is Marvel's Warpath, and this looks like a more fun figure. He's bigger and he has more stuff, so let's look at the artwork first. He does seem to be part of the X-Force. On the back you'll see the same stuff we saw on Black Tom Cassidy. I keep wanting to say Black Adam. Black Tom Cassidy. Warpath is a powerful mutant with superhuman strength and speed. Warpath is a formidable warrior with a proud and noble heart. He kind of suggests a Native American with what looks to be a totem pole looking detail on him, and he the fringe and the other detailing suggests a Native American figure. So he is quite big. I'm going to take out his hands first. And this is a leg from what is going to be Strong Guy. And I guess his legs are kind of stubby, at least more of a part than just this. Yeah, he's definitely supposed to be inspired by Native American culture. If you look at the moccasin type of boots, um, the fringe, the feathers in his hair, the long black hair, um, this is, and this very much looks like a totem pole or a type of design. So, and the headband, there appears to be like a war paint going on too. So, um, he has. Let's just compare him first of all to Black Tom Cassidy, and look how much bigger he is. I mean, he is huge. He is usually the kind of figure that they do build-a-figures of, as far as size goes. If you compare him, say, to She-Hulk, they're right almost in the same scale. Okay, so he has two fist hands and two hands that can grip, which I prefer. Um, I prefer having hands that can grab things. So let's give him hands that can grip things. And that's a little, you have more of a functional action figure here. He has two pauldrons on his shoulder that are pegged in there really well. Maybe, well, it doesn't really constrain movement of his arm very much. So now he can hold something, or, you know, he can grab Black Tom Cassidy's wrist or fling him around or whatever. They definitely, this is a much taller figure. He has a lot of articulation, and we'll go over real quick. The head has great articulation. The hair constrains it a little bit. The shoulders, the range of motion, once again, is a little bit constrained by the pauldrons, but with this fringe, you can get around that mostly. Elbows, wrists, the torso, and waist. He has a separate piece of a utility belt here. He has sort of a nice swivel hip here, but his legs can also flay out. He has a cut joint here. I've never really liked this cut joint in the Marvel Legends figures. He has knees with a kneecap, which gives a lot of range of motion for posing. And that amazing ankle articulation that just goes all around that you see. And a cut joint here where his boots are at. So, great articulation. The standard that Marvel Legends has given us. Curious as to why such an interesting figure would make its way into Ollie's. I don't exactly understand, because this is a cool one in my pick. I mean, this figure looks great. It will display great on my shelf. I really like this one. And he's huge. I mean, I don't have a lot of huge figures, and this, it's always good to get one, you know, just one that towers over the other ones. So I'm pretty pleased with that one. And you get this Build-A-Figure part. And I don't know if this Deadpool had come with one. If you look at the back of the box, it says 1. So I must have the head in here somewhere. But I don't know if I'm going to try to put together this figure. I don't know. I mean, I've done a few Build-A-Figures, but you know, I mean, you just have to kind of pick your battles when it comes to Build-A-Figures, which ones you want to go all in on, because it's hard to find all the parts. And if you really are a completionist, obsessive completionist like me, you'll end up wanting to trade for the other parts or try to find them on eBay, and that can get ridiculous. So when I think about figures that end up in ollies, I usually think about figures like this. This is neat looking, but this is more of a paperweight than an action figure. I mean, because what they really should have done was included legs, so you could alter. This could be an option instead of your figure. This is why this one is all over ollies. You can go in any ollies and you'll find this guy, which is sort of sad because there's a lot of things to love about this figure. For example, the detailing on his, goggles, this sort of aviator, pilot hat, this flight jacket, these gauntlets. I mean, there's a lot to love about this figure, but this bottom part makes it almost just like an ornament instead of a figure. I mean, you could literally stick this on top of a Christmas tree. It's not exactly a fun action figure. And oddly enough, this guy is all over ollies. This, this fantastic Wolverine, who I like this guy a lot. He comes with alternate hands and an alternate head. Of course, you're gonna want to display him with the cowboy hat and the claws, because this is Wolverine. How else are you gonna display him? But this one was ollies, which kind of puzzled me because he kind of reminds me a little bit of Old Man Logan, but he's not really. He's just middle-aged Logan. But I really think this is a great figure. Really, really, this is my only Wolverine in this scale, and I really, really like him. Yeah, this is a great figure right here. Okay, where were we? So the last figure I have to show you before we kind of recap everything is Marvel's Maverick. And if you're thinking Star-Lord, I am too. There's so many things about this figure that make me think of Star-Lord. I'm talking about not Chris Pratt Star-Lord, but original Star-Lord from the comics that they made a 3 3/4 inch Marvel Legends figure of, that had these exact guns, had a very similar space altitude mask, and I mean, this to me looks like another version of Star-Lord, but this is Maverick. So let's read. Maverick absorbs the force of enemy attacks, converting it into hyper-concussive blasts of power. And same wave, we got an arm from Marvel's Strongman. But once again, I'm kind of puzzled as to how this fun-looking figure made its way into ollies. As I said, ollies is where action figures go to die. Like, here's one I rescued from ollies. This is Miss Marvel. Not even the good version of Miss Marvel. This is the kind of cheap version of Miss Marvel, because if you look, her hand is not even really a snap-on hand. It's like a glove. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's not too bad. They just went horribly cheap with it. I think these were like a Game Reverse version, but a cheap Game Reverse version. Although I don't hate Miss Marvel like so many people do, I thought she was a perfectly cool little character. I just think that they could have done more justice with a better figure. But of all of those Game Reverse of that wave, this is the best. But you can still see it ended up in ollies. The biggest sin on this figure is that right there. Look, this should not be like a snap-on glove. That's just why couldn't they have a whole part to put on there? Because if you turn her arm around, that just looks gross. I mean, it looks really gross. Unless she's supposed to be wearing a big boxing glove, which she's not, as we all know. This is supposed to be her actual arm. She is kind of the equivalent of Mr. Fantastic. So everything else about the figure was pretty cool. And it had a lot of the same characteristics you'd expect from Marvel Legends, except not as much articulation. Like you won't find the ankles or the waist, but a good sculpt and good paint otherwise. Okay, let's take a look at this. First, we got this very large arm from Marvel Strongman, and it is a large arm. That is one big arm. This alone makes me intrigued about the Build-A-Figure, because now, after seeing this, I mean, now that's starting to look like a cool figure. I mean, he's an X-Man, and I mean, that's one big arm. Look at it compared to the leg. This is going to be one crazy looking figure. And I also like the metallic armor here. I really like that look. Big giant. Yeah, that's something else right there. And the movement, the craftsmanship on this is so smooth too. You can this is high quality. Kind of makes me want to own this Build-A-Figure now. Okay. He comes with these two. They look very much like little Tech 9s or something. I don't know. But they look very similar to the weapons that Star-Lord carries. And once again, I'm not talking about Chris Pratt Star-Lord. I'm talking about the comic book action figure Star-Lord. And interestingly, they're both different. At first glance, you think they're the same, but these are actually two completely different weapons. See? Two completely different weapons. That's kind of cool. Oh boy, this is a cool figure. Okay, just feeling this in my hands, I'm like, this is nice. He only has one holster, and that bums me out. He has two guns and one holster. Maybe you get to pick which gun, or maybe in the comic story he goes through two different guns, but this one fits really good. And this one doesn't really fit at all. So I would say put this one in the holster, which looks really good. Put this one in his hand. Somehow. Get his finger on the trigger here. He actually has two. It might fit better in this hand. Yeah, it's made for this hand. So, note to self, it goes in the left hand. And it fits great. It really fits really good. Look at that. He's got his finger on the trigger. It looks great. Holy cow. This is one seriously, unexpectedly cool figure. I'm going to spend some time talking about this now because I really like what I'm looking at here. Holy cow. Okay, where to begin? This figure is really a find. Of all of these figures so far, this is by far my favorite. Okay. The name of the character is Marvel's Maverick. Oh, there's something in here. It's probably just safety warnings. Yeah. Okay. Marvel's Maverick absorbs the force of enemy attacks, converting into hyper concussive blasts of power. This guy's something else. So as far as just coolness, let's take a look. His face mask is very enamel lacquer looking. Kind of reminds me of Black Panther, kind of like Wakanda technology, you know. Then it connects on the back to this backpack that looks like a jetpack, or maybe it's part of his apparatus to absorb energy. And then he has this thing around his neck that maybe is a breathing apparatus. You see? Look at that. You can put his chin down, and it almost covers up his mouth. Just a nice touch. Really do like this mask. He has this gold armor. We've seen this gold plastic on a lot of Marvel Legends figures. Let me show you. A good example is this one from the Adam Warlock wave. This same gold plastic that they just love to use. It's sort of a gold metallic, but this figure, in my opinion, is neat looking, but it's a lot of hard plastic and not a lot going on with the figure other than he's kind of impressive looking. He kind of reminds me of Ragnarok. Coffee's so good. For a long day of work, I love me some coffee. But this is a real good example of how they really love using this type of gold plastic. So back to him, but they use it sparingly here. They just use it for his armor. He has a gun belt that perfectly holds this other machine pistol here. You can put his arm in sort of a quick draw while you have this one. You could get a little flex in his arm for a pose. He has what looks like maybe a magazine holster here. Then he has, looks like leather trousers or kind of a maybe chaps kind of thing going on, and then armor legs all the way down to his ankles. It, you know, just very, very cool. And then you see the armor here and here in his torso and his arms. Then he has a belt that goes along here. Just masterfully done. Exciting figure. One I wanted to display in the front row. I really like this guy. Makes me want to read the comic. Just makes me all around excited. Rarely do I find an action figure that just really I like so much, because I really like this one. A lot of different parts too. This strap here, this neck piece here, this backpack, the holster, a lot of parts here to create a really cool whole. So what can I say? I'm really pleased with this guy a lot. I'm really pleased with him. The articulation, of course, is great, and he moves so well too. Like, you feel all the locks in the joints to get him into some fantastic poses. I mean, you could really do a lot with this. Just a really, really awesome figure. Makes me really want to find a comic and learn more about this character. I really like this guy. So, and he looks great next to him. The third eye guy here. And now, not only that, I've got to build a figure that is looking more interesting every minute. So some good stuff here. I mean, this to me was quite a haul. I mean, let's just kind of recap. So we started out the video with looking at IG-11 from the Mandalorian, and we decided that despite being a little bit more flimsy than IG-88, he's still a good figure. Definitely looks like the character from the show. Quite posable. He doesn't hold his weapons super well, but you can make that work when you pose him. So a good Star Wars figure. Then we have the off-world Jawa with a soft goods cloak, a lot of detail put into his hood that seems to be in a separate piece from his head. He includes 2 weapons. That he doesn't really like holding, but he still will. The classic Jawa thing that he shot R2-D2 with, I was never sure if that was just designed to stun droids or if that was a defensive weapon. Either way, very cool. And the Mudhorn egg that we saw in the show. I don't know if you've ever been to France, but there's a dessert called Mont Blanc, which is it's hard to explain. It's cream on top of chocolate, and it's surrounded by strings of caramel strung out, resembling this, and it's really delicious. So every time I see the Mudhorn egg, I think of a Mont Blanc. So that's the off-world Jawa to put in your Mandalorian collection. Next, we looked at Black Tom Cassidy. And we decided that Black Tom Cassidy kind of made his way to Ollie's for being kind of dull. And we also couldn't help but notice that he looks a lot like Morbius. It almost seems like a repaint. It might very well be, actually. The more I look at it, I can't help but think this is in many ways a repaint of Morbius with a different head and some, just some subtle changes. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying that, these figures are really similar. Just subtly different. But if you pose them together, they wouldn't look half bad. They almost look like a duo, Then we looked at Marvel's Warpath. He came with a leg for Marvel's Strongman. He came with alternate hands to grab or to punch. And I had put on the grabby hands, but just to make the action figure, do more. But you can also give him these fists for fighting. The sculpt is really good. And the articulation is really good. He has these pauldrons. He's definitely inspired by a Native American warrior, especially with the device on his outfit. What looks like, leather fringe, buckskin kind of fringe, the feathers, the long black hair, the war paint, the headband. So, but still a cool figure nonetheless. Then finally, I was really excited to look at Marvel's Maverick, who looks like Star-Lord with some Wakanda gear and some fantastic detailing, painting, accessories. Just makes me interested in the story of who this guy is. and the articulation is great. The this of all the figures on this X-Force wave, I have to admit this is my favorite. And I mean, not to downgrade good old Deadpool here. So this is the X-Force Deadpool, and it's X-Force because it's, you know, it's like the parody of X-Men, and he's wearing X-Men or X-Force logo, which makes it's, you know, it's Deadpool. Deadpool is the tongue-in-cheek, self self-referential, whatever you want to call it. And we have this ginormous arm for this Build-A-Figure. We also looked at some other Ollie's Marvel Legends and talked about how they probably ended up there just because of things like this, with figures that don't really have a lot of play value. This was definitely made in mind for collectors who like to pose their figures, for sure, because this is something you just would pose. It might look good on your shelf if you're a big fan of this character. This is something you'd want to own. But we also talked about how there was a lot of cheap figures turning up, like this fatally flawed Miss Marvel with, instead of a actual alternate arm, they made it like a glove that doesn't even fully fit on, which when you lift it up like this looks really gross. I mean, there's no other word for that. It just looks gross. It just looks unnatural. So and then we wondered, like, why would a quality action figure like this Wolverine end up in Ollie's? A good action figure down to the detailing in his belt buckle, the hat, the claws, even the detailing in his blue jeans. You know, just things like that makes you wonder, why did this figure end up in Ollie's? So, you know, you gotta ask. Some figures end up there, some don't. And so I wish I had another good example. Well, here's a figure that never ends up in Ollie's, and that is Beta Ray Bill. A classic, cult classic, fan favorite figure that you never find in an Ollie's. These are hard to find anywhere, because this is just a beloved character. He opens his mouth. He looks like a dinosaur. I mean, he's just a really, really cool character. He's like a Thor fanboy. So, and he's got, looks like Stormbreaker here. So, definitely a cool figure. This is the one that you won't find in Ollie's. So, very cool stuff. Just very cool. Particularly this guy right here. Another, I mean, he pairs up nicely, you know, with some of your other Marvel Legends figures. I mean, they would display great together, even down to similar detailing. That, man, this is the best find of all of them. Something sometimes I just enjoy after a long day of work, you know, just coming home and just kind of like looking at these, looking at the details, admiring the work and the craftsmanship. It inspires me to want to grab a graphic trade paperback and read a story, you know. There's nothing wrong with that. It is what we have. It's 2022. You know, this is a form of entertainment we have, and you should appreciate it if you like it. There's nothing wrong with it. It hurts no one, and it opens you up to another world of, you know, stories and ideas that, you know, may inspire you to make up your own stories or be creative, you know, or maybe it just is a way to relax. But there's a lot of appreciation I have for the work that was put into these, whether it's reliving your favorite parts of the Mandalorian or discovering new characters that you didn't even know about. And the best way to discover is to have a three-dimensional representation that you can hold in your hand. And that, to me, is a really good way to sell comic books. When you really think about it. It really is. These all are basically, this is all very, very kind of a clever way to sell comics. There we go. These are all very cool. And granted, when they make these obscure figures like this, it is a good way to, because a lot of these characters you're never going to know about. And it might even, well, like Squirrel Girl or the Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, it gives these characters a second life. Because in a lot of cases, a lot of these characters, you know, might have, you know, run 20 years ago and have been forgotten about. I hate it when a weapon is bent. That's one of my pet peeves. Executioner. Actually, this one is straight from the movie because it does look like Carl, what's his name, the actor, who was in Star Trek. And, you know, you can alternate his M16 here. And he has his obsidian axe. So, lots of interesting characters. Never quite figured this guy out, though. He comes with the little race car with the head on it. Just kind of strange. There's a lot of vague Marvel characters, and don't really know who they are. But the figures give you a way to discover them. So that was a long rant. Hope you enjoyed the video as I go through all of these. This is the original Captain Marvel, actually. The Captain Marvel's had a lot of incarnations. This was I guess Jude Law didn't give the rights to his likeness, because this was his character in Captain Marvel. So you just have to take their word for it that it's him, because they didn't give you a head. Because I don't recall in the movie very much that he wore a helmet like that. Well, anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and call an end to this video. Just showing you a bunch of stuff. Reviewed some action figures, and I hope you enjoyed it. And Thanks for coming by my channel. If you like my videos, subscribe, leave a comment. I know I'm late on answering some comments. I'm going to get around to that. Until next time, bye.